LANCER. Also, if you know, the do not spoil is purely to block the web browsers. So people can't stay to see where my digital table is and fuck with shit. Yay. So again, this is LANCER. It is a space galaxy-wide RPG that revolves around a mix of narrative play and mechanized combat. The characters you play in this game are known as Lancers, ace pilots, primarily using the highest tech of the Lance, or the mechanized chassis, that kind of sort. You're basically ace pilots who have jumped from piloting maybe planes or a certain set of skills to now being basically a nuke on legs in some cases. So we're going to go through table of contents. We're just going to skip through. I may make these smaller. Yeah, about here, that's fine. So we'll go through the compendium real quick, just browse through. Go past all of this lovely artwork and some of the examples of some of the mechs. So here's just a bit. This is literally just an introduction to the setting, saying you're set in the year 5016U, trillions of light years away from Earth. Many planets have been colonized, and the people of Earth kind of branch out and trying to basically rebuild what they've lost. Again, I'm not going to go deep into the lore because there are multiple books that branch out this world. There are currently 2 legit books and legit basically expansions. Oh, technically 3. There's 1 expansion that gives you some mechs and some more talents for your pilot. Then we got basically a narrative campaign that's only in its part 1, and then we got another expansion. And then there was also in the works a second, kind of like a fan-made expansion that's sort of in the works. We're not going to go through all that. We're just going to go purely through the mechanics, how the game is played, what we do, how we make our character, all that jazz. So, playing Lancer. It's broken up into missions with uptime and downtime, and prioritizes mech combat. You need a D20 and a number of D6s. I say at least 3 or 4 D6s for the advantage and disadvantage system. You go through. Obvious golden rule is have fun, and basically stuff split into narrative where you're not in your mech, and combat where you are in your mech. Things in this game are usually split up into skill based and skill checks and attacks and saves. So you'll mostly be rolling to do skill checks, to attack, and to roll for a saving throw, or to contest a check with someone else. So you're rolling against another character, another NPC. You can choose to fail any roll you take. The bonuses that you can get, as opposed to D&D where you would just roll 2 dice if you had advantage or 2 dice and take the lowest if you had disadvantage. It is split into a case of you would add a D6 instead of adding an extra D20. So you'd roll a D20. If you had advantage, you'd roll a D6 too, and you'd add the results of that D6 onto the roll of the D20. If you had difficulty or disadvantage, you would roll a D6 as well, and subtract that D6 from the roll of the D20. Accuracy and difficulty counteract one another and also can stack. So if you have multiple accuracy, you would be rolling more accuracy dice. If you had a difficulty roll within those accuracy dice, the difficulty roll would subtract from the accuracy. So say you're rolling with 2 accuracy but then get 1 difficulty, you would then be rolling with 1 accuracy total. We also have a grit system, which basically adds to all of our roles with our characters at half of our character level or license level. Again, missions are split into downtime and scenes, so think of it as certain narrative chapters. Building pilots and mechs. License levels. So license levels is your main way of leveling up in this game. So instead of like leveling up as a traditional character, you would gain a license level, which would either be with an experience base. There's also a system in one of the later games that allows you to buy for it, but usually your GM will award you a license level at the end of like every mission or 2 missions, depending on how he wants you to progress. But you start at license level 0 and an experienced rookie. And as you level up to a maximum level of 12, there is no going over the level of 12. You'll get more traits and skills that you can add to your character, as well as different mech licenses that you can go into and train towards. The new player who is license level 0, you will have your background, so basically your lore or history. You'd get 4 of your 2+ pilot triggers, which are triggers specifically for you when you're outside of your mech, and each one can go through a variety of different things, and you can also negotiate what they might go towards. You will get 2 mech skills that you basically 2 mech points that you can put into your mech skills, either putting a +2 in one or splitting them apart. You will get 3 rank 1 talents, so you can't go into a rank 2, you have to take 3 separate talents. You get the basic mech, which is the General Massive Systems, or the GMS, or the Everest, or the Old Yeller. And that's what you get at level 0. Leveling up. As you level up, you will always get 1 trigger, which will get a +2, or you can make an entire, or you can either add it to an existing trigger, or an assisting pilot skill, or create a new pilot skill, or select a new pilot skill. You would get 1 mech skill, you would get 1 talent, and you would get 1 license rank to go towards a mech tree. And as you level up, you will get grit, which is half your pilot's level. So at level 2, you would get 1 grit. And then at every 3 levels you go through, you would get a core bonus, which is basically a powerful improvement to your character and your mechs, in accordance to what kind of mechs you have been piloting and what kind of tree path you go down. At the end of every mission, every time you level, you can reallocate your points. So you can choose to reallocate one of your talents. So if, say, you have 3 points in one talent, you can change that to having 3 points in another talent. And you can do the same thing for licenses or and if you have a change of license that requires you to change your core bonus, you can do so. Here's your little level chart that kind of shows as you kind of gain 1 each level, 1 of each level, which kind of makes it not too hard to learn. Some character portraits. So when making your pilots, first thing you would consider is your lore and background. Now it does give us a bunch of things we can select. These are all flavor unless you have a situation where the lore you decide or create for yourself or select from this chart or roll for is useful, and you can negotiate that with your DM. You may get advantage, but if the DM can decide that something is a detriment, it can be a difficulty. For example, if you are a noble and you're in a very high class area, you could use that to you can use kind of that noble swagger of yours to kind of get an advantage in different things. But say you're in a not so posh place and you're considered an outlier, you might get a difficulty in all of your checks there. And again, this is just basic stuff and examples of what you might take within certain backgrounds, like being a celebrity. So like maybe you were a posh celebrity before and used all that clout to get into a mech. Or say you're just a colonist in some outback planet, and maybe you're the only person who's decent enough to pilot a mech, and you get your history from that. Or maybe you're a criminal, going through dubious means to work your way into a way of getting a Lancer's license. Maybe you have a very good financial backer who's expecting something in return. And yeah, he basically just goes all through all of this stuff. Or maybe you're an NHP specialist, so you work very much and very often with me, who is an NHP. And again, NHPs, non-human person, special AI, paralleling corporal and paracausal in space. Worship the Godfather. Yeah. Again, more little stuff, more background stuff. Skip through. So triggers. Triggers are things that you could apply with your character when outside of a mech in the narrative scenes. These can cover, each one can cover a broad range, depending on how well you can bullshit your way through, or negotiate with the DM. These can go into things as, say, apply your fist to face. It can cover things as being incredibly violent, or using brute force in any kind of situation. As opposed to just simply threatening, which is the attempt or threat, or basically using the fear of you doing that to get what you want. There's the right away triggers of saying acting unseen or unheard and sneaking through. Applying fist to face, just brute force, brawling, unarmed combat, anything like that kind of stuff. Assault, maybe you are good with a combat weapon, maybe you're good with assault rifle. This was what you would roll if you wanted to shoot something from a distance, or maybe you want to blow some shit up. This covers a wide array of things that is up to the player and DM's discretion of how far they want to take each and every single thing in this tree. Again, at level 1, you can take 4 of these with +2s to them. So pick what suits your character or what you might think of taking advantage of in a non-piloting situation. But again, if you're in a situation where you're in combat, but not in a mech, you would have your standard HP of a human being, and it would be very much dependent on your armor, equipment, and all that stuff. As a pilot, you do get to choose, like, basically whether or not you're in a stealth suit, an assault suit, something heavy, something light. But at the very start, your HP is always 6 plus your grit. You're always half size. Your evasion is 10. Your E defense, which we'll get to later, is 10, and your speed is 4. Your health will change depending on your equipment and all that jazz. So you get to choose your triggers, write down your combat stats, choose your gear, which we'll go through later. And now we move on to the mech. Your mechanized chassis. So you get to choose 2, when you're at level 0, you get to choose 2 skills, which is these skills. You'll have Hull, which is your mech's build and durability. So this will affect your HP and your ability to pilot. So Hull will normally be a boost to your HP. Agility describes how agile and fast you can move. This will affect your ability to evade enemy hits and also your overall speed. Systems is basically your mech's defense system, so your mech's firewalls, your mech's antivirus, all that jazz. It will affect how hard it is for people to hack you, how easy it is for you to hack them. And then you have your engineering, which usually affects around your ability to get support systems and basically fit as much as you can in your mech, and also how much heat you can get out of your mech. And again, mechs can only go from 0 to 6. And I'm normally using a set of triggers when you're in your mech, such as to assault. So you can't apply fist to face when you're in your mech. And here are some examples of rolling a hole when you want to smash or pulverize for an obstacle. Roll agility if you're chasing a pursuer who is fleeing at incredible speed. System if you're infiltrating a gate or something. Or engineer if you need to kind of fix something, repair something on the fly, all that jazz. So modular mix we'll go through basically what your mechs are and what your mechs can do, and go through your licenses. But at level 0, you will always have a GMS Everest. It can look like anything you want, and all of these mechs are 3D printed for you using the latest technology. So now we'll go to your structures of your mechs. Your mechs are normally mixed up into basically a set amount of HP, evasion, how much repair cap they've got, how much heat they can take. Those are normally traits of your frame. And your frame might also have a set amount of mounts. So it may be you're in a very light frame that only has one single mount. Maybe you're in a really heavy frame that has like 2 main mounts, a flex mount, and a super heavy mount. And it also mechs can vary from different sizes, which we'll get to at a later point, and have maybe a certain amount of armor. So again, I'll go through mounts. You can either have a main mount, which will take a main or an auxiliary weapon. A heavy mount can take a heavy, main, or auxiliary weapon. Aux mounts can only take auxiliary, so think of it as light, medium, heavy. A medium can take either a medium or light. A heavy can take all 3, one of all 3, but a light can only take a light. Or maybe you've got a main / aux, which means it can take only 1 main weapon and 1 auxiliary, or you can take 2 auxiliary. So think of it as a 2-for-1 mount. Flex mounts, you can either take a main weapon or an auxiliary, or two auxiliary weapons. And then there's integrated mounts, which are used to specifically use weapons that are equipped to your frame. And then there are super heavy weapons, which will use either a heavy mount or a mount of any other size. It's all very dependent on the frame. And again, weapons are split between the categories or auxiliary, which are usually the smallest type, mains, which are basic size, heavies, which are larger than anything, and super heavies, which will literally devastate the battlefield. And then we've got types. Types of weapons are melee, which is basically your swords, your axes, your chainsaws, all that good stuff. Close quarters combat, which is your shotguns, your close range weapons, your flamethrowers, stuff that can farther than a melee weapon, but still you need to be pretty close. Rifles, steady long range, got good stopping power. Launchers, which use projectile weapons, which can usually blow over cover. Cannons, punch through any problem with a cannon. Problem solved. I just love cannons. And Nexus weapons, which are basically special forms of weapons which utilize certain technologies to kind of negate cover. Maybe they target the enemy purely through a lock-on or through a E-defense. And we go through different damage types, so you will either have kinetic, explosive, or energy-based. Some weapons may also deal heat, which is a second resource of your mech, and may also do burn, which is setting you on fire. You don't want to be set on fire. And each mech will also have a number of system points depending on the mech, and also one of your skills, also your system skills. And you will use these to add special modular gear to your frame, which can be swapped out per mission. And then last but not least, you have your core system, which is basically your heavy hitting core power that you'll get your first one at level 3, your second one at level 6, and can be used to greatly improve your mech's capabilities. Again, we have our basic statistics, which is HP and structure. So you'll have a HP bar, and you'll also have a structure bar. You'll have a structure bar of, you'll have 4 structure, and once your HP reaches the level, you'll have to roll a structure check, and you'll get a consequence of that roll of your structure check. It should be so much as you lose a weapon, you lose a mount, maybe you lose a system, or maybe you go into core meltdown and you're going to die sooner than later. But you also, on the offset of that, you also have repair cap, which is basically you can use it to replenish ammo, heal yourself during battle, heal an ally during battle, or if it's not used in combat, use it to repair your mech outright. Speed how far your mech can move, and also move as you boost. Evasion is your way of dodging enemy fire. Your sensor is basically the range in which you can hack someone or use certain abilities. Tech attack is what you will use to use special abilities to attack someone's E defense. If you bypass their E defense, you can maybe give them more heat to basically make their mech overheat and go into core meltdowns. Or maybe you can hack their guns so they jam. Or maybe you hack their visors so they have no visibility. Some of your weapons may use heat cap and stress. You can overcharge your mech so you gain a special action. And if you do that, you will gain heat. You also might have weapons used against you that give you heat. Or you may get hacked and basically heat. Think of it, heat as a second HP bar that you can go into as well. But you also have 4 stress, which is similar to your structure. Your save target is what it says on the tin. If you have this is what the enemy has to roll greater than to hack your mech or invoke a consequence. So if a mech is going, basically this is what they have to roll better than to get out of something you do to them. So say you're going to do something that's going to cause a mech to get stunned, unless that mech beats your save target. If your save target is high, then it's going to be harder for them to break out of that stun. If it's low, then you're easily going to get out of it. And then your mechs improve as you gain your hull agility, system, and engineering. As you level up your hull, you'll get 2 points of HP per point and 1 point per 2 points of hull. Oh, 1 repair cap per 2 points. So basically, you'll get something for every single level and then something else for every second level. So with agility, you'll get evasion. So you'll get +1 to your ability to evade, and at 2 points, you'll get +1 to your speed. System is the same for E defense and tech attack. You'll get 1 point, but you'll get 1 special point system. So something you can put into your system score or system points every 2. And engineering, +1 to your heat gap for every point of engineering, and then +1 to the maximum uses of limited systems. So if you're using a weapon that has a charge, you can do it like that. And then your core bonuses are things that your pilot will gain at levels 3, 6, 9, and 12. They're permitted to improvements to your freedom pilots. They're only locked to specific license ranks, so you have to go through a license rank of a certain tree in order to get to unlock them. So at level 3, you will only be, unless you put 3 points into a license, you might only be able to get the standard GMS ones. But say you put 3 points into a specific license or a specific path, or like basically, it's like sticking with a manufacturer. If you stick to a specific brand, you can use their core bonus. So if you put 3 points into a specific brand, you get that brand's core bonus. Or you get to choose from that brand's core bonus. So it's almost like they're sponsoring you, you're earning their trust kind of thing. Okay, so now we're moving on to talents. Talents, you'll gain 1 talent per rank, and talents can go up to tiers of 3. So you can either put that one into a separate talent at rank 1, or build up to a rank 2 or rank 3 as you're leveling up. And then basically some stuff about creating a mech, starting off at license level 0, add the bonuses to your mech, setting all your stuff, picking your equipment, all that jazz. And then it goes for an example. So you have Taro Oda. He's a colonist. He took the read the situation, spot, take something out and survive, and he got them a +2. He wanted to invoke his background. He can gain additional accuracy in those kind of situations, but if I want to do something against him, I could always give him difficulty. Next, he picked out his pilot gear, so he picked up a medium signature weapon and a light hard suit, and then some extra rations. She picked and chose to put 2 points in her hull to basically give her a +4 HP and 1 repair cap. And then she put rank 1 into Correct Shot, Infiltrator, and Leader, which we'll get to talents at a later date. And then that would basically be her at level 0. And then she would move on to making a mech. So she's at level 0, so she gets a GMS Everest. She chose to give it a heavy anti-material rifle for a heavy slot, an assault rifle, and then a tactical knife. So outside of those weapons, because she has 2 points in her hull, she got 4 HP and 1 repair cap. But with them Everest, she gets 6 SP. And she chooses the following customizations: X pattern charges, which are basically grenades, the rapid burst jet, which is something that can help you stay in air, and a projected shield, which can help with defense. And that's what her Raging Everest looks like. The Everest always has the innate trait of once per scene you can take a quick action as a free action. So once per mission scene you can take that as a free action. And then replaceable parts, you can use less repair cap to fix stuff than you would normal with another mech. And that's basically how her mech looks. Although she wouldn't really have a core system. And then this will basically just go up to her leveling up as license level 3. And what changes she may have made through that. So she put 3 ranks into a single mech license, so the ISP and Rylan, which is basically a revolver gunshot frame. She kept putting points in to read the situation and take something out. So she went through read the situation twice and take something out once to get these following scores. She's changed her gear quite a bit, including choosing some custom gear. She's put all of her 3 points in again that she's gained from being level 3 into hull. So that's given her 10 HP and 2 repair cap. She took another rank into Correct Shot and then put 2 ranks into Leader. And then built her mech accordingly, using the Rylan, which she has at level 3. So she basically is fitting out to pilot a single mech to her specialty. So that mech now has 28 HP, 5 from her core bonus, 10 from her hull, 2 from her grit, because her grit is now level 2 because she's half of level 3, and she took the system of personalization, which we'll get through when we go to systems. Repair cap, she has 2+2 from her hull, so she's made herself to be very, very tanky and durable. So her mech can take quite a lot of damage. And this basically just goes, this is specifically to the Raylan's traits. It can, as long as it doesn't move, it can reload all of its weapons as a free action. It can also make weapon attacks when it's jammed. So you can't jam this mech. System points, she got an extra 2 from her grit. And then she took hand cannons, which is a specialty of the Rylan, an assault rifle and an anti-material rifle. The core system is the Mjolnir cannon. And she's still taking grenades, a rapid burst jet, the shield, and personalization. And that's her. So mission uptime and downtime. Mission's kind of broken up into different scenes. So you'd have your briefing, you'd have your preparation, you'd have your character go out to try and get any reserves, and then you're on the mission. So you might spend some downtime at the start of the mission trying to build for the upcoming mission, to kind of preparing and doing stuff on the field or in a hub zone to kind of prepare, or maybe not do anything at all and maybe get some intel, or maybe get work some favors. And this is just some stuff of like rolling what your factions for and stuff like that. Who's giving you the orders? This is basically DM stuff. So this is what I would roll to figure out for the mission. So I would roll to see who's paying you, what you do, what's your personal history with them, what's their history. This is all just low stuff. So again, we go from the mission. Stage 1 would be the briefing. I'd roll from this table to figure out what your mission is. And then I would make up a scenario and talk people through the situation and basically go through role playing. Maybe I'd be the grizzled commander who's talking everyone through what the sit rep is, or maybe I'm just the operator or a handler. And basically we go through the goals of the mission and what the stakes are if we fail, what the stakes will be if we succeed, that kind of jazz. This moves us into stage 2, which is preparation. Every character in the preparation stage, usually you'll give someone like one thing to do during the preparation stage to kind of build their mech how they want, pick their equipment, all that stuff. If they want to change their loadouts, they can do. Usually this time is usually like an 18-hour period, so if they wanted to print something else out, or print out a new weapon, or print out a new mech, you would do it in this area. Stage 3 is selecting reserves. So, if you want to work towards reserves, like getting specific ammunition, or maybe getting a airstrike or an orbital bombardment, that kind of stuff, you would do so in the reserve section. And then stage 4 is the actual mission, where you're in your mech, on the field, taking part in the mission. Depending on whether that mission is a success or fail, you go for your debriefing, so run through what happened and what went down, level up if necessary, talk about the mission, all that stuff. It all fits into a mix of narrative play and mechanized combat. So we'll just go through this, skip through this, and again combat and narrative play. Oh, combat and narrative play, yes. And again, I decide whether or not how hard stuff is for you, whether or not it's difficult, risky, or heroic, and you would roll for that stuff accordingly depending on the situation. And narrative and combat, it breaks it down. Hit points, damage and injury. Since you have a certain amount of HP, if you go down to 0, you're in critical. You'll either take mana damage, major damage, or lethal damage, and you can die. If you're on 0 HP, you'll be considered down and out. But you roll a d6 to determine whether or not you shrugged off the hit and you're back on 1 HP, you're in a KO'd status, or you're dead. And that's just how life is. And again, we go through downtime, which is basically what your characters are doing, what the player characters are doing when they're not in the mission and not focusing on the mission. Maybe they're going around something that's revolved around their backstory. Maybe they're just kicking it back and enjoying the area they're in. Maybe they're exploring, so that kind of stuff. Or maybe they're working towards reserves for the next mission. So maybe they want to get some weaponry, or they want to get a specific part or equipment that they want. And there are also a case of you'd roll for your downtime. So say you want to work on your organization skills, you'd roll for that. If it was a success, maybe you get some benefits. Or maybe it's a case of you want to roll to get something, you'll figure it out. But again, and depending on the results, I might roll on this table to determine what you get. It might be knowledge, it might be reputation, it might be some black belt material. It all depends on what you roll, or what I decide. I can go through a bunch of things such as tactical advantages or assistance in any way to help you with the mission. But again, downtime actions can spend many things. Power at a cost. So you're trying to get your hands on something, you might get it regardless, but there might be a cost to that later on along the lines, depending on who you get it from and how the deal goes. Buy some time. Maybe you're currently in the middle of the mission and you want to slow down enemy forces or prevent something from happening. You might want to roll for this to see if you can do something outside of combat to make your life easier in combat. Or maybe you just want to gather information. Or in this case, maybe you just want to get a damn drink and just unwind, but at the cost of maybe losing your dignity or all of your possessions. Or you can choose to be creative and get stuff done with your organizational skills, scavenge, anything you want to do in downtime, you can roll for. And now we're into an amazing thing, which is mechanized combat. So we would go through combat. Mech sizes go into 4 or 5 stages. You're either a half size, so the size of a human, or a about bigger human, like 7 feet tall. You have your mech, or your standard mech, which is 14 to 20 feet tall. I don't know why they're saying tanks are heavier than... I don't know why they say like mechs are these big. Speaking of the size 2, which takes up 3 squares. Size 3 takes up more. Like a size 3 mech would be like the size of a building. And then your size 4, which is huge. The size of the mech determines how many hexes you will actually prioritize. And combat. Once the mission starts, or you're in combat, starting combat, ending combat, taking turns around. So the players have types of actions. So you get one move action, which is moving your maximum speed, or up to your maximum speed. Then you can choose to either take a full action, two quick actions. But once per turn, you can overcharge to take a quick action but gain heat. And it basically just goes through here: standard action, quick action, full action. Free actions do not take up a time slot, and you can just use them as they are, as long as it says that it is a free action. Reactions are what you can do on your enemy's turn, or in resolve to a circumstance that is usually labeled on that reaction. And again, overcharge. You can overcharge your mech to make them get a quick action at the cost of heat. Movement, you can move your speed. You can either use it to get in engagement range with the NSC, move next to an ally, move into obstructing cover. But so long as you are next to a hostile character, you are considered engage. As long as you remain adjacent or next to them, range attacks against the engaged character is a +1 difficulty. So you'll have a harder time using range attacks on someone you are next to. If you are engaged next to a target that is larger than you, you can't move. And you'll immediately lose any unused movement. So there's no running past the giant mech to get out of dodge. Movement semi-action. Certain weapons might have a threat range, which is hexes away from the main hex. That can be used to trigger reactions, which could be considered, literally could be taking a shot at them, grabbing them, or using a special form of action in response. Involuntary movements is normally something you might need to do a hull check for, but it's basically you being pushed, pulled, or unforcibly removed or thrown. Difficult dangerous terrain, again, moving through difficult dangerous terrain, you're moving at half speed. Might incur some other consequences such as kinetic damage, energy damage, or explosive damage, maybe some burn. And again, lifting and dragging is moving with something, but you're moving at half your speed. Or maybe you can't move at all. Jumping and climbing is a similar situation. Depending on what equipment you get, you might have equipment that can help you fly. Falling, there's a situation of if they fall 3 or more spaces and cannot recover before hitting the ground, maybe requiring an agility save, you'd round it down by the squares. but there's a limit to how far you can fall. Characters start to fall at the end of the current turn. At the end of the round of each turn, if thereafter they take 3 armor piercing damage, so that can't be avoided. For every 3 spaces, they'll take 3 AP. But you could always be in a situation where you are in 0G, in which case you won't take any fall damage. You might be slowed unless you've got specific equipment though. And again, there's flight. Flight might be a situation where so long as you are boosting, you will remain in the air and without the risk of falling. Carrying objects in flight, again, is moving at half speed, or moving at half speed, depending on whether or not you are lacking certain equipment. And then there's hover flight. If your mech can hover, they do not need to move into a straight line and can basically navigate in the air without any issues or at risk of falling. Or say you want to make that can teleport. Yeah. Teleport basically ignores everything. So next, we're going to move into attacks. So, depending on the weapon you're using, you will have a certain number of actions to attack. You can either use 2 quick actions depending on the weapon, or if a weapon requires a full action, it will require a full action to make that attack. You can make a melee attack. So basically you have to be engaged in order to make the attack roll. Make a ranged attack, which is set to a certain amount of range, which is determined on the gun. And may invoke certain things as difficulty if you are right next to someone, or depending whether or not they are in soft or hard cover. You'll get to soft or hard cover at a later date. Tech attacks are basically electronic warfare attacks. They do not suffer from cover. You can do them willy-nilly based on the enemy's E-defense. And tech attacks ignore cover. Critical hits. Rather than rolling a flat 20 with critical hits, so long as you roll 20 plus, you'll cause a critical hit, meaning all damage dice are rolled twice, and the highest result from them is taken. So if you have a weapon that takes 2d6, you'd roll 4d6 and pick 2 highest. Certain weapons have different ranges, so lines will hit any hex that is in a straight line of it from your space. Cone will hit a wider array of spaces. Blast is a number of X's around a specific area that's being dropped. And burst is usually like blast, but around your frame. And threat, we've already covered threat range. Here are some examples of ranges and also cone attacks. So it would look like that. So determining valid targets and effects. Usually other characters, objects that are not part of the terrain, all that jazz. Line of sight, you can only take actions and target against things you can actually see. If it's not possible to trace the line of sight, perhaps it's completely blocked by cover or terrain, then they can't be attacked. Line of sight simply doesn't mean visibility alone, but it can also clear a path for your attack. A line of effect. So basically, basic line of sight, if you can't see them, then you can't shoot them. Arc weapons are designed to lob projectiles over obstacles. They can be used to attack. So basically, arcing weapons may ignore cover, or may ignore line of sight. But say cover might still block some of the damage for you. Seeking is a different thing. Seeking ignores cover and line of sight, basically bending bullets, and will reach the target using a different way, usually by using the E-defense. Invisible. You might be able to spot a certain shimmer, but of an invisible character to know where they are, but you still might not be able to hit them. So if a character is invisible, it's basically a 50-50 chance of whether or not you'll actually hit them if you think you can see them. You can either flip a coin to decide, or it would be on a 4+ on a roll. And again, if you're in cover or breaking line of sight, you can have the option to hide, which means they can't see you and can't detect you whatsoever. And here is just some example of cover. So we have hard cover and we have soft cover. Soft cover is something like smoke, trees and foliage. Basically enough to make it harder for him to get an accurate shot, but not enough to stop the bullet. So soft cover would always give you a +1 to difficulty against shots against you. So for example, this Rala will have a +1 difficulty to its shots against this Minotaur. In terms of this Goblin, which is not so much in hardcover, but the Pegasus is in hardcover. Pegasus is right next to this cover, meaning you would get a 2 difficulty. I personally would say the Goblin isn't in cover. But if you're not banging next to hardcover, you will get soft cover just being 1 square away from it. But that's only if the hardcover is obstructing. But again, it's take or even. It's at the DM's discretion. Checking for cover, determine the character's soft or simply finger. Again, DM's discretion. The Blackbeard would be in hardcover with his bang next to it. The Genghis would be soft cover or not cover at all. Or would be considered flanking. So damage types, we have explosive damage, energy damage, kinetic damage, and burn. With armor and resistances. Armor reduces all the incoming damage from a single source, equal to your armor rating. However, armor piercing weapons and burn ignore this damage. So if someone has armor 2 and they're about to take 4 damage, they will only take 2 damage from a rifle. And you would have to also calculate certain traits and also certain factors. So resistance is always, you'll get half of the incoming damage. You will get a reaction called brace as a standard that usually lets you, once you take a hit, you can choose to resist half that damage as a reaction, as a consequence of only be able to making 1 quick action your next turn. So calculating damage, attacker rolls the damage that applies to radiant. For example, if someone's frame is exposed, they will take double damage. If they are shredded, then they don't get the benefit from armor, that kind of stuff. And it's all tallied off the remaining HP. So here's an example. Burn is its own little thing. So when a character takes burn, it has 2 effects. First, you immediately take burn damage, so you will always take the damage from the first burn. So if something is going to hit you and do 2 burn, you will always take 2 burn damage. That ignores your armor, you take that damage outright. And then characters with burn marked must roll an engineering check. On a success, at the end of their turn, if they succeed in the engineering check, they'll clear all burn equal to the amount of burn they've got. If they fail it, they're going to take that damage again. So if you take 2 burn, you take 2 damage right off, and at the end of your turn, if you fail that check, you'll take an additional 2 burn. And then that persists at the end of your turn. And this stacks. Burn from additional sources adds to total marked burn on a character, so if you hit by 2 separate burns, the attacker first takes 4 damage. So again, burn stacks. So if you have a burn stack and you take more burn, you're going to get to take more damage. Which means the best thing to do is try and clear off that heat the best you can. So pack a lot of fire extinguishers. And now let's move on to heat. Again, heat is a separate resource on your mech. Taking heat ignores armor, and although it can be affected by resistance, you can get resistance to heat if you so wished. I don't think it happens with brace though. But again, you taking a frame out using heat can be just as effective as beating them with a stick. So it's always another approach if you want to be a more hacky frame. But you need to be aware that biological characters would instead take the energy damage instead of taking heat. And then we have the situation of where some weapons deal bonus damage that might apply in different ways. So heat, explosive, energy, all that kind of stuff. Some mechs might give resistance to damage types outright. Some might gain a flat-out immunity. Immunity means you take nothing from that whatsoever. You're free to stand in the fire if you're immune to burn. Genghis. And again, objects can also take damage, which is also a pretty hard thing for me to track as a DM. Unless I specifically give them a kind of like token. Again, you can also make actions to resolve certain things and certain situations. Again, quick actions. If you want to use a quick action, which is basically half of a full action, you can use it to boost. You have to move at least one speed up to your speed. That allows you to make extra movement. You could maybe grapple. So when you grapple, try and grab hold of a target, and overpower them, disarming them, subduing them, all that kind of stuff. So grapple, you have to be adjacent to them and make a melee attack. On a hit, you both become engaged. Neither character can boost or take reactions during the grapple state. The smallest, or the person who has been grappled, is considered immobilized. And will move with the larger party, mirroring their movements. If both parties are the same size, you have to make a contested hold check. So, if they make a contested hold check and they win, they're the one grappling you. Grapple ends if characters break adjacent, so if one of you lets go and moves away, or is knocked back, that breaks grappling. The winner can choose to break it as a free action, or the defender can break free using a contested hold check, which they use as a quick action. Hide is a skill you can use to avoid line of sight or break line of sight so the enemy cannot keep track of you and have no idea where you are. To hide, you must not be engaged with them, so you must be not bang next to an enemy, and you must be obscured by cover or considered invisible. If you're hiding, you have the criterion of getting the hidden status. Basically, being next to hard cover will give you the option to hide, no problem. Or just being naturally invisible, you can just hide as a quick action regardless. They cannot identify the target's location of hidden targets. So meaning they can't actually make actions to attack you. But you can still get hit by area of effects, such as flamethrowers and grenades. So hidden characters should be careful of that. And obviously the purpose of hiding is to try and stay stealthy. Okay, quick tech actions. Quick tech actions are basically electronic warfare attacks or countermeasures that you can use during your turn to affect other mechs. Usually you might have a frame that has a special skill that is considered a tech attack, or maybe you can do something like these in any standard mech. Any mech can use these tech attack options. So you can use a tech attack, you can always use a quick tech action to bolster your mech or bolster an ally mech. When you bolster, you use your mech's available processing power to enhance another's character systems. So boost an ally's skill, maybe give them a +2 and +2 advantage. So they might get a +2 to a skill roll, or they might get an advantage dice. That looks like just a +2, but that does look like an advantage dice. And the character can only gain the advantage of one booster at a time. You can scan. So when you scan when using your mech, you choose a target to scan, you perform a tech attack. Depending on the success of that tech attack, you can find out information such as your target's weapon systems, and also what the HP, speed, evasion, armor is. One piece of hidden information on the target, so you might be able to learn a specific trait from this target. Generic or public information, so you might be able to learn about the pilot and all that stuff. Lock on. A lovely, lovely lock on. You can use a quick attack or a quick tech to place lock on a target. This isn't considered an attack, this is just considered lock on. Lock on is a expendable resource. So when you put lock on a target within your sensor range or line of sight, they gain the lock on condition. Any character can make an attack that makes an attack against them can spend that lock on condition to gain +1 advantage. So if you lock on something and someone shoots something, they can use that lock on if they remember to that they've put lock on something to spend the die and get an advantage. Lock on is a very handy tool and it's really useful when you remember to use it. And then you got your basic invade, which is basically just hacking in order to do some form of system damage. The target will always take 2 heat from a success if you beat the redefense, and it would basically just be a consistent of a feeding false information or doing something to fuck with them. You can also invade allied characters to do the same to them, and they can also choose to fail. And again, they become impaired and slowed. You can choose to ram, which is basically just a running melee attack to push someone smaller than you away or knocking them prone. You can use it to search for something in a certain area, or search for a hidden character. The search is an attempt to identify hidden characters. Search and inspect hidden contested system check. So basically, it's a system check or a check against their systems or check against their agility. And to search as a normal pilot is the range 5, always. Once you search and find a hidden target, they're no longer hidden, and you can basically call them out for that. Skirmish is making a single weapon attack as a quick action. So this is using one of your main or auxiliary weapons to deal or attack. Super heavy weapons are too cumbersome to be used as a quick action. So if you have a super heavy weapon, you must always use a full action. Full action is barrage. So to barrage, you attack with 2 weapons or 1 super heavy weapon, which is basically just making an attack. So if you want to barrage something, you can either attack with a super heavy weapon if you've got one, or just make 2 weapon attacks. Disengage. When you disengage, you attempt to extricate yourself safely from a dangerous situation. Basically, like taking a retreat and step out of threat range as fast. So you would use a full action to disengage to kind of get out of engagement status. If you're next to someone and they're not grappled you, you'd have to use a full action to get away from them. Full tech, some actions may require a full tech action to apply, or you can do 2 quick tech actions. Or, unless maybe you've got something in your mech's hand, you can make an improvised attack. So maybe it's with the butt of your gun rifle, maybe with this random bust you've got next to you, that kind of thing. It always does a D6, that kind of jazz. You can also stabilize your mech as a full action, which is basically using emergency protocols to do one of the following effects. Stabilize, you can choose one of the following. You can cool your mech, clearing all the heat and explode status, which is basically cooling down, shutting down, making stuff easier for you to do later. You can mark 1 repair and restore all of your HP. You can reload all your loading weapons. You can clear any burn as a full action. Or you can clear one condition that wasn't caused by one of your own systems. Or you can do the same to an ally. So you can run up to an ally and you can clear their jam. Or their exposed status and that kind of stuff. And then you have other actions that fit as to like booting up, so turning your mech and shooting it down. It's a full action. Mount, dismount, or quick ejects, depending on the situation. Usually climbing something would be a full action. Prepare. So preparing to take an action would be a quick or a full. And if that specific meant if that specific thing is met, you can use a quick action. Use that quick action to follow through. It does depend on specific triggers, so it could be like, I'm going to overwatch this area. And if something goes in that area, you can then use your reaction to shoot. But it also could be a case of, I'm going to prepare throwing a charge grenade at this wall when this happens. So maybe it's something you want to prepare for at your ally's turn. So maybe you want to blow a hole through something so your allies can breach through, but you don't want to do it on your turn because the enemies might just go breach through instead. You can also engage in self-destruct, which you better get out your mech. Or you can do a skill check, which requires a full action. Overcharging. So we discussed overcharging earlier. Overcharging is using one heat in order to gain a quick action. First time you overcharge, you always take one heat. The second time, you will always take 1d3 heat. And then after that, it's 1d6 heat and then 1d6 plus 4. The more you overcharge, the more heat you're building up. A full repair resets this counter. So out of combat, when you make a full repair, you can reset your heat. And then we follow with reactions. So every mech can use the brace action as a reaction. So trigger is you are hit by an enemy attack that has damage and damage has been rolled. You can roll to resist that damage to all that burn and heat from a triggered attack. Until the end of your turn, all other attacks made against you are made at +1 difficulty. Due to the stress of the bracing, you cannot take any reactions to the end of your next turn, and you cannot overcharge normally or take full actions or take any free actions. So if you have to brace, you're not going to gain the advantage of certain other actions. Overwatch, if something breaks out of or moves within your threat range, you can use that to make a attack, and it's specifically a skirmishing attack. And then you've got your free actions, so stuff you gain from your overcharge, stuff that might be called a free action, something that might be considered protocol, stuff like that. Pilots in mech combat. So piloting your mechs, which we've already gone through, dismount boot, shutdowns, all that stuff. Your pilot statistics, you're fighting on the ground. These are stuff you can do as a pilot, so you can fight, so maybe you can shoot your own gun. You can mech jockey, which is basically riding on an ally or enemy mech and damaging the mechs in different ways, either by giving them impairment or slowed, shredding them, giving them heat, or just doing damage. So if you're on a mech and you've managed to hold on, you can do damage to a mech. Alright, non-human persons, me, the wonderful Cinder. So you might have a system on your frame that may contain the AI tag. These allow you to activate certain things as protocols, which are special abilities that kind of work among themselves and are usually free actions, and usually do not need a turn to activate. You also can, if you have something with an AI tag that can control your mech, that mech can be piloted even when you are not in your mech. Okay, here's your quick combat reference sheet. Move, full action, quick action, overcharge, all that stuff. Systems and conditions. So status effects. So danger zone, when your mech's at 50% heat, it's in danger zone. Down and out, we've already explained this, when you're all on 0 HP. Engaged, again, when you're next to an enemy mech, you're considered engaged. Exposed is a mech only one, so when you're exposed, you are dealing double of everything you receive, so you'll receive double damage from any weapons. You have to use a stabilize action to remove exposed. Hidden, we've already explained. Hidden is basically breaking line of sight and hiding away. Invisible is being invisible, meaning everything's a 50% chance of hitting or missing. Prone, attacks against prone targets are always get +1 accuracy, so if you're prone, you're more likely to be hit. Characters are prone are slowed and count as moving on difficult terrain. They can move prone by standing, which takes their full movement, unless they're considered immobilized. Standing up doesn't count as movement. Still doesn't trigger Overwatch or other effects. Shutting down your mech, we've already gone through that. Conditions, immobilized. If you have the immobilized condition, you cannot make any voluntary movements. If you're impaired, anything you do has +1 difficulties. Characters see +1 difficulties to all attacks, saves, and skill checks. Jammed, characters can't choose comms to talk to your allies. Can only make improvised attacks, grapples, and rams. And you also cannot take reactions or benefit from tech actions. If you have lock on, hostile characters get +1 accuracy when they spend that charge. Shredded means you don't benefit from your armor or resistance. So if you brace and you're shredded, you're still taking full damage. Slowed means you move at half speed. Stunned means your mech won't move. You can't overcharge either. But your pilot can still eject, mount, and dismount. And when you're stunned, you have a minimum, or you have a maximum of 5 evasion, and automatically fail hull and agility saving checks. Combat terminology: armor. Armor is basically your freedom from kinetic damage, and your and basically how much damage you can negate. Bonus damage, kinetic energy or explosives added on to any attacks that are made. Character is all standard. Damage, kinetic explosives, energy, and burn. E-defense is your electronic defense. Evasion, your mech's ability to dodge. Grit, we've already gone for grit. Heat, basically your heat capacity, and so how many times you can overcharge, or you can use weapon systems that consume heat. Heat cap's the same, all that jazz. We'll go through stress and structure when we go through the actual digital table. But yeah, I think we've kind of covered everything. So when your mech is on 0 HP, you will go into a structure state. So it's a separate table that you will roll, and your mech goes back to full HP, and you have one of these following systems happen. Say for example, first structure check, you have to roll. You roll a 1, which is direct hit, which means you roll a D3 again. And maybe your mech's stunned, maybe you have to roll a hull check, or maybe your mech is destroyed. This roll depends on your structure actually. So when you start off with 4 structure. So your first structure is always, if you roll a 1, you're stunned. If it's the second time this happens and you roll a 1, you're stunned. If it happens multiple times, your mech's destroyed. Which means you either sit tightly in that mech and hope someone rescues you, or you get out your mech and do other things. It's a similar situation with heat, so we have our heat roll table when we go into core meltdown. And that's that for an entire combat scenario. You would then move on after that, you'd kind of move on to repairs and rest. So after a mission scenario, you would be spending repair cap as you need. So maybe you want to fix your mech some more, you want to spend more repair cap to that. So like restore a mech to 1 full HP would be using 1. Or if you repair something that's been destroyed, it's 1 again. 2 if you want to gain 1 restructure or 1 stress. 4 if you want to repair a completely destroyed mech. And again, destroyed mechs are considered just trash and salvage. A full repair usually takes about 10 hours relatively. Or you can just print a new mech out if you have that access. Death, you know what death is, but death is not the end. You have multiple choices of cloning. Maybe you have a sufficient backup plan, but there might also be complications with that cloning. Or it might be a case of prosthetics of the sort. So maybe you've been cloned, but you've got a quirk now. You'd roll on this table to see what your quirk is. The clone has been fitted with a necessary but visible cybernetic augmentation. So basically, clone issues, you've now got prosthetics. I love this design. This is what Cinder would be if I had the technical know-how. Some more beautiful artwork. And now we move on to the compendium. So, just some of the talents you can take. We'll skim through these. But usually these would be picked depending on your playstyle. So maybe you're specific in melee. You might take something like Duelist, which will give you a +1 to the first melee attack you make on your turn. Or an advantage on it. But again, that will improve on tiers, depending on how many tiers of the talent you take. Again, they cover a wide amount of array, and there is very much choose depending on how you might want to play. You can swap these out after every time you level. And go through here. This is just going through pilot gear stuff that we'll cover when we go into the next stage. And it basically shows all of our limited gear. And then if we keep moving down, we see our mechs, what their core stats are, what their core systems are. For example, the Drake. And then what you unlock when you take their licenses. So I'm going to just close this for now, because we're done with the core book. And now we get to move on to the juicy stuff. So this is a web app resource called ComCom. This is the go-to place, in my opinion, to make your Lancer character. It is a free resource that you can either get a browser for, or you can get on a web app for. But it covers a wide array of things, such as a basic compendium that also has a glossary of effects, references. This is your go-to place to keep on hand if you want to keep track of certain effects in the game, or have information to show on the fly. But it will cover. This also supports the DLCs with content management. But we're not going to be doing that today. Today we are going to simply just make a basic character, transfer that basic character into a game. So let's go first. We are going to make a new pilot in order to support a fellow pilot in Cinder. So we go to create pilot, new pilot registration. This is Pivot. His call sign is Joint. We're not going to do his background, or his background is maybe Player 2. And if we wanted to add a biography, we could type a biography out in here. We could do the same for a health examination. Or continue. Oh no, or we can select an image as well if we wanted to. Or choose a selected image that we've got here. Which moves on to player skills and triggers. So we have 4 skill points remaining to apply into any one of these. So our good buddy here is really good at taking something out, really good at spotting, but he's also good at inventing and patching things up. Your typical handy support. So again, we've got 4 skills that have a +2 to them now. We then get to choose his talents. So he could be an ace, he could be a flying god and have the acrobatic skill. He could be bonded, which would one we're going to take. So when you take this talent, choose an other pilot, hopefully a PC, or what NPCs are fine if the GM allows it, to be your bandmate. And the skill check saves either character make while you are adjacent to them, gain +1 accuracy. And when you have this talent increases to 2 accuracy with additional characters can't take this time. Yeah. So both characters have I'm your Huckleberry. This goes to +2 instead of +1 accuracy. But we're gonna take it. We're then going to take Cracked Shot. Oh no, actually no. We're going to take 10,000 Teeth, which is a Nexus skill. And then we're going to take Drone Commander. So he's kind of a support role. He's kind of playing a support role with Nexus weapons. So we kind of want to choose things that work with us accordingly, which would be 2 to his systems. And then this is joint. He's created. You got all of his stuff here, and we can register him. So now we have joint, our buddy here, who we're going to click on. It shows you all what he's got. So his skills, or his triggers, so the stuff that you can do outside of mech combat. We will then choose his gear. So he's a very heavy guy. He likes to stay in heavy body armor. Maybe he has a light AC weapon and a light signature weapon. And pilot gear, a data plate, so he has can get some information, so it's kind of like a tablet. Mag clamp, so he can carry and cling onto metal surfaces in 0G. And maybe a smart scope so he can scout. That's that. Move on to tactical profile. We currently have no licenses because he is license level 0. If we had special equipment, which we might get at the end of a mission, we could put it here. It shows his systems here, and the benefits that it gives. And it also shows all of his talents. And now we move on to mech hanger. So, technically, I have 2 mechs here. One of these mechs is DLC, so we're going to ignore it completely and go with the Everest. Deploy... No. We're going to name this mech Deploy the Boy, because we're going to deploy the boy. So we have this mech. It gives us the warning that it has nothing at the moment. Comcom will automatically apply certain things such as HP, Tech Attack, and E-Defense. So we're in the GM1 Everest. We have the initiative, and we have replaceable parts. And now we get to choose our weapons. So, because we're in a supporting role, and also ignore Plasma Talons, you can't take Plasma Talons unless you're in a specific mech. We are wanting to take Nexuses. So there are 2 Nexus options. We have Hunter Killer, which is kind of like the heavy ones, or we have Lights, which are auxiliary. So we're going to take a Hunter Killer in this main. And rock a D6. And then maybe for the second one, we're going to do the same. So we're currently rocking 2 Hunter Killer Nexuses. Now for a heavy, I don't think there is actually a Nexus option. No, wait. We could just take another Nexus Hunter Killer. But he's going to take something else. He's going to take an anti-material rifle. Or maybe a shotgun. You know what? He's going to take the shotgun. It's a main CQB, so it's not actually a heavy weapon. But it's something you can put in your heavy slot. And now we get systems. Normally, in an Everest, unless you have since you've not put any points into... If you're not putting any points into systems, you would only have 6. Because we put 2 points into systems, we gain 1 extra system point. So we can take specific things such as this, which is gives our mech the AI tag and allows the mech to act independently. But we're gonna take some smoke charges because we want to obscure or deploy smoke mines. We're gonna take a turret drone because we have the drone skill. We're going to take personalization because it has the inherent trait of giving us +2 to our HP. We're going to take stable structure to protect us from being knocked down. And that's 7 points taken. And that's our mech build. So now, if everything worked as normal, I could just import using this option. So I could just go home, go to pilot roster, click on joint. And because I have an account here, I would have the option to share a code and generate a pilot code. In which Comcom will generate a code that I can use to import. And then I could go on to this lovely little feature we've got called Forge. Launch Foundry. I'm going to change my thingy tag actually for a later date so you can see this for now and I don't really care. Come on, launch. Oh, I've been active for 1 hour and the game's become idle, that's why. 2 seconds, game be weird. It's because I've been inactive, that's why. So if I get this loaded up, you go to Lancer, I am the game master. And we successfully join. Hello everyone and welcome to Lancer, ignore these pop-ups. Game is old. So this is the test map. I am using a mixture of Foundry TTV or VTT, the Foundry Vessel tabletop, which I currently use a proxy server for with Forge. You could, if you wanted, you could use your own IP to connect to people, but that's super tricky for me. And I also like Forge because it lets you save your information on Forge rather than having it all on folders that you can easily delete or lose and all that jazz. And the advantage with Foundry VTT that I find much better than Roll20 is modability. The ability to pick and choose which mod you take to improve your game, which benefits Lancer on this virtual tabletop greatly. I love Foundry. I will endorse Foundry over Roll20 because I hate Roll20 and that is just my bias. I am very much aware of that. I do not get comfortable with the lack of support that Foundry that Roll20 gets, and just how unfun it is to do anything on Roll20. As opposed to here, which, yeah, I've had an update, so I've lost a bunch of stuff. And I do have issues with this game, with Foundry. And I'll point one of them out. So we're going to make Joint. So we're going to make our good friend Joint. He's going to be a pilot, so we've just created a new pilot. We could import. Sadly, I have an error that doesn't let this work. So now we're going to import all of this stuff from our fancy new character manually using Foundry. So you see here, this juicy little thing we've got here is a compendium. This has all of our information that we need to add to our character by dragging it on. So we have Joint, whose real name is Pivot. No background, or background was player 2. We could put his history, we could make mental notes. We then move on to tactical. He's license level 0, so we don't care about that. He's got no grit. We know he has 2 system. We also know that he has triggers. So we go to skill triggers. We know that he has invent or create. So we'll drag that in and drag it on here. And look, invent and create right here. Dragged from the companion, no problems whatsoever. Look at it right there. He has patch, so we drag and drop patch. He has spot, so we drag and drop spot. And we has take someone out. Two points in system. We would then choose his gear, so pilot gear. We know that he has data plate. There, come on. Data plating. And it comes up here. We are also aware that he has mag clamps. And a smart scope. If you wanted to, you also would have the option of making custom gear. He has pilot armor. He's currently wearing a heavy hard suit, which we know gives him plus 3 HP, so he's currently on a maximum of 9 HP. And it also gives 3 armor, or 2 armor. And we know its E defense and its evasion rate, as well as how far he can move in it. And weapons wise, he is using just basic pilot weapons of a light AC, so a light archaic weapon, and a light signature gun. He doesn't like taking anything big. He likes to keep small pistols on hand. And that's that done. That's done. That's that done. That's the pilot stuff done. Which moves us on to the next thing, so we would go to frames. He is in just a GMS standard pattern F wrist. We drag that in, and all of these base stats have changed in accordance to the mech that we've applied. With force structure, force stress, with heat cap, HP that we're going to put on max, and then armor evasion, all that jazz. And it shows us his system there. Now, we are very much aware that systems have changed things for this mech. So, we are very much aware that we are currently have a tech attack of 2. And our E defense is 10. And our SP is now 7. That is from our 2 system points. So our 2 points into system has affected our E defense, our sensor range, and our number of SP. Handy. Now we get to go and build up this mech using what we've used, using ComCom as the reference. We are aware that we have a main mount, a flex mount, and a heavy mount. So now we would go to weapons. We are aware that we have, where is it? It's Nexus. This is the only. I actually have something really handy. This is an example. There is currently a mob for Foundry VTT on LANCER that if I press Control and Enter and then press Nexus, I can drag it from here. Mod ability. How handy. So he has 2 Nexus Hunter Killers, and then a shotgun. Look at that. If I was playing Roll20, I would have to manually edit all of this. So we would then move on to systems. So for the systems of this mech, we have smoke charges, pattern B smoke charges, or pattern A smoke charges to be exact. We have a turret drone, which I should really do a faff around with. So he's got a turret drone, Personalization. The old reliable. So we've taken personalization and then stable structure. Because we've taken personalization, we can add 2 HP to our maximum HP with this frame. So that brings us up to 12. And that's our Everest, all nice and built up. Everything we need on mech to look here, we've got. If you want to use anything as a reference, we can do so on Comic-Con. And now let's just find a random ass token for him, which I have plenty of tokens on hand. Who are you going to look like today? We are going to make you this guy. Look at him. Look at our boy. And then again, that just shows here. And we deploy joint. He's only size 1. But if he was size 2, for example, he would be so much bigger and occupy more square. Nah, let me do the thing. So say, for example, he's size 2. He would occupy 3 spaces. And be much bigger. Look at him go. But he's not. He's only a small boy. He could be an even bigger boy. Like a size 3. And change it back to size 1. I like to make them look bigger tokens to kind of just fit the board better. So we have this. So yeah, he looks a bit taller than his buddy here, Test. But he's support. He's there in spirit. I'm going to have him right next to him because he has the I'm Your Huckleberry talent, which he also thought to go. We've got to do talents. So compendium talents. He's bonded. He's which one? What was the one? Oh, he's Centimite and Drone Commander. So now we need to make a drone for him. So I'm going to create an actor. I'm going to create deployable. I'm going to create the boy. And the boy is just going to be there for a while. Now, 5 HP, no armor. Evasion 10, defense 10. Half size. We have our boy. So, for a scenario, our wonderful, wonderful 2 bestest best friends have just been engaged by the enemy, which consists of 2 squads of 10 soldiers and 1 hive NPC. I'm going to do this, and we are going to now be in combat. Well, not yet, because I need to end combat. I'm going to do this all over again. So we have our combat chart here. I'm going to use something that I learned from a different RPG to kind of change things up a bit. So, how initiative works is players will always take their turn first. Their current objective is just survive for a single turn. To make an example for me. So it would be Joint and Test would decide which of them wants to go first. To which Test is going to go first. So we have Test. He is a melee warrior. And he does not care that he needs to stay next to his best friend to get all of those juicy I'm Your Huckleberry advantages. And he's just got a Leroy. I know, technically, he doesn't even need to Leroy because he's right next to this squad. So this is a squad. Just a random NPC of 10 human soldiers that Test just sees lurking in the bushes. And he's just going to go, fuck it. I have a sword. He's got a tactical melee weapon. And he's going to take a swing. Now, they are in soft cover. So they are within the cover of all the trees. So they have +1 difficulty to the die. But because our buddy here has a talent, of Duelist. The first melee attack he takes, he can gain 1 accuracy, which is exactly what he's going to do. So he's going to roll with a tactical melee weapon. So he would have 1 accuracy and it would be 1 difficulty. These would technically cancel them out, so we could just say note, but we're going to do this for the fun. And then we're going to roll. And he rolled trash. He rolled the 3. So let's say he's cut a single tree down, but nothing much else. But that's his turnover. Ignore that. So that's Test's turnover. Now, it would be to the enemy's turn. So, our buddies over here are going to move 3 to here. Yeah, this is where it gets annoying because it's size 4. And they're in hard cover. They are going to, because they are within range, going to use the anti-armor heavy cannon on Test. Canada, just get the fuck away from my friend. Test isn't in cover, so this is just a flat roll. The enemy rolls a 13, which if we look at our evasion is 9 for Test, so it hits Test, and Test takes 2 damage. 2 damage is not on, is on 12. We would now check to see whether or not he had anything that could negate it. Nope. Nothing's invoking a save or a skill check, so he doesn't get that advantage from your Huckleberry. But that's their turn. They managed to do 2 damage. I know it. This one can make 2 attacks at a time. So again, technically they can roll again. And this is armor piercing, so yeah, so he's now hit again. And because he's crit, he's done 5. So -5 as well. So Tess just took a pounding and didn't get much out of it. But that's fine. It's now his buddy joint's turn. His buddy joint is just gonna shimmy around here. He's gonna think of, oh, I don't like what you've just done to my buddy there. So now he's gonna do an attack in these soldiers who are in hard cover. And yes, I have just aware of 1 mistake I did on his turn, but we're gonna ignore it for now. So yeah, he's gonna take 2 quick actions. And what he's going to do is he's going to make 1 smart attack. So with the smart tag, I don't have to make an attack against their evasion. I can make this against their E defense. But they're still in cover, so it's going to be 2 difficulty. He rolls an 11, but their E defense is 8. Same as their evasion, so it wouldn't have made much difference. So some drones have flown out of my nexus and are shredding away at these guys. They take 4 damage. And then he's going to do it again with his second nexus. So same again, 2 difficulty. Sadly, he didn't do as well. He rolled really low, so they dodged. And then that's... But because he's very angry and very vengeful, and he has a shotgun, he's going to overcharge. So we're going to press this lovely button here. He's going to gain 1 heat, and he's going to make a quick action. So with that quick action, we will say that he's going to deploy his boy. So that drone is now here. Spend the charge to deploy a turret at any object's surface. Within center range and line of sight. Once the drone is deployed to the drone, he can now, as a reaction, to be honest, he should have done this at first. I'm being dumb. But we learn our lessons. So now the drone is up. Which then brings us to round 2. So for round 2... No, so also I need to just mark people off, so... Boop, boop. The hive's going to come here. And the hive has a wonderful set of options. But he's just going to fuck with Test. Because fuck Test. Test isn't in cover. So he's just going to take a shot, which most likely will hit because his E-defense isn't that strong. Yes. And as a result, he's going to take free burn. I don't have a token for this, but he's currently taking, so he takes 3 damage. And he's on fire. Fortunately, he's not got his turn, so he doesn't have to worry about it. And that's going to be the end of... Actually, no. That was a quick... He's going to do a drone barrage on Joint. He's going to make a tick attack. Against his sensor range, which it doesn't succeed at because our E-defense is 10. So Joint negates it. Nothing happens. Now, technically, I'm supposed to do a turn for this 3rd squad, but because something I learned from Apocalypse Rain is do actions in comparison to the number of players you have. So I'm only going to do 2 actions, and we're going to skip a turn. So we're going to move into a new round. It's now going to be Joint's turn. Joint's decided he wants to go first. So Joint, after realizing that the hive might be the bigger risk, but because he's got a turret, he's going to do the same as what he did before. Rolling 13, which would hit these soldiers, doing 3 damage. And he's going to trigger a reaction of the drone. So if we look at his drone, as a reaction, the drone can do 3 kinetic damage as long as it has line of sight on the target. So the drone is going to do 3 damage to these guys, killing them. So that squad is now dead. Wrong squad. That squad is now dead. That drone cannot do that again. So as his 2nd turn, he's going to focus with his shotgun on that squad of humans. They're in soft cover. So it's +1 difficulty. But he's hit with the shotgun again and does 4 damage to this squad. Because he hasn't... He still wants to stay next to his buddy, but he knows his buddy's probably also going to move. So he's just going to move adjacent to this hive. Which then brings us to next turn. Next turn is going to be this squad taking their turn. And because they are still above half HP, they can do 2 of these attacks. Primary weapon. missing completely. And missing again. Nothing came off their turn, and then their turn's over. Joint's had his turn. That squad's had its turn. Now it's Test's turn. Now Test is on low HP. He's not doing too good. He could, if he wants, repair and use a full action to return him back to full HP. He's going to take a risk and thinks that he can take out this squad. So he's going to pull out his sword again. And he's going to go chopping away. He's going to make a melee attack against them. And misses again. Which has really messed him up. But he can take another shot with his heavy weapon. But he's going to take another shot with his heavy weapon against the Hive now. But the Hive's in Hive's in hard cover. But he's going to risk it anyway. He rolls an 11, which beats the Hive's evasion of 8. The Hive takes 6 damage. The Hive doesn't have any armor or resistances against it. And he's going to overcharge because he doesn't want to risk this squad still being alive. To make a other swing at this squad. Now, because he's already taken he's actually just going to grenade them. So he's going to use a Hex Pattern charge to throw something within Blast 1. Which brings me to Blast tokens. So Blast 1, he's going to pick this square. And everything in here is going to be affected. So because this is actually invoking a saving throw, I'll just delete that now as example. They now have to roll a agility save. So they're going to roll agility. They have to roll it against his save target. So Test's save target is 10. They had to beat a 10, which they did with a 14. So they only take half of the 1d6 damage. So I'm just going to roll 1d6. They take literally just 1 damage. And that's his turn. Test isn't doing so good. Test's not rolling the best. So now it's the Hive's turn. What's the Hive wanting to do? Well, the Hive is realizing that his best bet is to keep fucking up Test. So what the Hive's going to do is he's going to use his trait of Razor Swarm. Oh, no, actually, no. He's going to use his Hunter Killer on Test. Because he's got someone next to him, he's with 1 difficulty. And Test avoids being more on fire. Oh yeah, Test was on fire. So at the end of Test's turn, Test has to roll an engineering. He fails, so he will take 3 damage from the previous burn, and he remains on fire. Always remember when you're on fire, folks. Because the DM will also forget sometimes. But again, may miss with the Hunter Killer, but he's going to use a Razor Swarm in a burst one around him, so it will hit Joint. His allies would have got soft cover, but hostile characters will take 2 burn. So he takes 2 burn, putting him on 10 HP, and he's on fire as well. And then that's ends up his turn. He doesn't want to move out of the way because he's not sure whether or not he's got anything threatening. We move into a new round of combat. So, Test isn't going to risk it. Test is going to stabilize. He's going to spend 1 repair cap. And he's going to heal back to 4. So, he's back on full HP. But he still thinks he's got a shot on this squad. So, he's gonna try again. But he's going to overcharge this time. So, he's going to overcharge, taking D3 heat. So, he's going to take 3 more heat. And he's going to make another weapon swing with 1 accuracy against 1 difficulty. Hoping that he might hit. Not hitting. The player is visibly frustrated. So he's just going to go over here. And go adjacent to the hive. Unfortunately, it wasn't reiterated that... Alright, so no, how does it raise? +1 for your area. Oh, only hostile characters that start their turn in it take it. There. That's fine. Joint's going to start his turn anyway, so we'll just ignore it in question. And that's the end of his turn. Squad is going to focus on Joint now. Taking 2 attacks. Or 1 attack. It hits, doing 5 damage. Again, I do miss out a lot of stuff, which my players will actually remind me and be helpful with. The stuff goes as varied. And also we forgot the boy. That's fine, that's their turn over. It's now Joint's turn. So Joint is going to keep attacking this hive. Because the hive is obviously the bigger threat. And he took 2 burn. So he's going to ignore the fact that he's on fire. And use his... He's gonna barrage, so he's gonna use 2 Hunter Killer Nexus attacks. Now, because he's next to him in hardcover, but he's still in hardcover, this is with 3 difficulty. The first one fails. The second one fails. So, he's just kind of fucked. But he's going to overcharge. Gaining 2 heat. And he's going to just shotgun. Missing. Because of course, all these fucking trashy rolls. But yeah, and then he's on fire. He now has to roll an engineering save. And he is no longer on fire. No, save target 12. He's still on fire, so he takes 2 more damage. Which then brings us to the Nexus's turn. So the Nexus will now roll to see whether or not he actually gets his swarm back. I'm going to roll a d6 on a 4+. He gets that skill back. He doesn't get Razor Swarm back, so we can't use it this turn. So what he's going to do is... he's going to tech attack test. Which I believe his E defense is 8. Yep. So he fails just barely, rolling an 8. So nothing happens. But he does still have his Hunter Killers, so he's going to make an attack again, make an attack against Test again. Hitting, doing 3 more burn. So he's currently already on 3 burn, so this puts him on 6 burn. So Test is looking very, very hot right now. But it's now Test's turn. Test, realizing the situation that he's in, is going to not stabilize because he's incredibly reckless. He's gonna shimmy. Oh no, technically he can't because he's engaged. But he's gonna make a weapon attack. With 2 difficulty, but +1 accuracy because of Duelist. And he misses again. Invisible Frustration is going to use a heavy melee. Uses heavy melee weapon. Ignore that roll because I forgot to add the difficulty. The Test player flips the table. And then has to roll his engineering save. So he's going to roll engineering. He does get +1 accuracy because he's next to his buddy. And he's no longer on fire, at least. So all of that burn has been cleared and he doesn't take any extra damage. Move on to a new turn. Normally these go to rounds of 4 or 5 rounds. So things normally would not go this slow, but they're having a hard time. Joint, realizing he can't make any moves, he's going to just attack the squad, because the squad's going to be causing problems. So, and Hunter kill a Nexus on the squad. Misses. Hunter kill a Nexus on the squad. Hits. Doing 5 damage and killing them. So at least both squads are now dead, so they can focus on a single target. But he now has a dilemma that he's actually going to be very reckless with. He's going to overheat, rolling a 6. So he is going to overheat at the end of this turn. And he's going to Hunter Killer Hive in front of him. Let me just roll 2d6. On a 6, 10. Fails. He misses. But now he's got the dilemma of he's going to overheat. So let me grab my lovely, lovely overheat. Drag it down here. Drag it down here. So Joint is now going to overheat. So I usually reset the heat back to 0. Or back to 1. But he managed to contain the heat. However, his mech becomes impaired. So his mech won't be able to hit shit. He gains +1 difficulty. The Hive's turn. The Hive is going to roll to see whether or not he gets his ability back. He doesn't. Rolling a 2. So he's going to make a tick attack against Test, because Test is the only available threat. Hitting. So the Hive makes a tick attack within sensor range. He's immobilized and impaired and can move 5 spaces in any direction. He's going to move him 5 spaces that way as the pilot screams in the cockpit. And he's gonna hunt a Nexus joint. Which hits joint, doing 3 burn. So he's now gonna do a structure check as well. And he's on fire. So rolling a structure check. He rolls a 1. He's now not just impaired, he's stunned. Joint is not having a good time, but at least now he's back on full HP. But now it's a new role of combat. So Test, who is currently impaired, and I also believe immobilized. All he can do is shoot. So he's going to make an assault rifle attack against him. He's not having a good time, but at least he does reliable 2 damage. So guns with reliable always do that damage on numbered damage, regardless of whether or not they hit or miss. Trying to remember how charges work now. I think he only has 1 of it. But he's going to not do anything. And he's going to use... Yeah, he can't do anything, so he's going to end his turn. I was going to have his turn. I'm going to keep fucking with Joint. Let's say he rolls that 1. I'm going to do Swan back. And he's going to do the same thing to... he's going to take attack Joint. And Joint's going to move 5 spaces in any direction. That way. They both are immobilized and can't do anything. He's no longer immobilized though. So Joint is stunned, so he can't miss his next turn. And then we would say combat ended there, and that Hive escaped to save. Or maybe we're in a situation where Test just runs back, heavy melee attack. Rolls the first hit in a long while, but only does 3 damage. He then tries to roll a second weapon swing. But misses. But yeah, you basically get an idea of how combat goes. I hope this has shown a good enough example. But for the time being, like as you progress, you will develop better skills and better mechs. And this is a skill-based game, so as you get more skills, things will be easier to hit. And you might not suffer as much as our current test subjects are, because my rolls are trash. But that's how combat will boil down. I like the idea of using, like, the amount of turns based on your allies, other players. So even if I had, like, 5 tokens, enemy tokens on the field, if I only move 2 per round. I like that from Apocalypse Stream. But yeah, that's all I'm going to be showing for now. I do really want to run a session of Lancer. Like, it can be kind of arsey, narratively speaking, because I kind of in combat situation. Also, the maps I find they're really hard to make because they have to jump through a lot of hoops to make certain maps. But Lancer is so rewarding to play. But yeah, that is Lancer. And that was been, holy shit, 2 hours to explain one RPG. So yeah, So yeah, that was Lancer. I hope someone has actually learned something from this game, and I might run sessions of Lancer at some point in the future. It is kind of tricky though, because you can't play with just one. Well, you can try and play with just one player, but it doesn't end well. You really need like 3 to 4 players to get a really good game out of Lancer. 4 preferably. Just so. And then you got a case of rallying 4 people. It's not like Apocalypse Train where I could literally just play with one person, or play with 3 people in 3 separate teams, even if they're playing solo, and run a narrative around that. Which, to be honest, I might